Hey, She Ace That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to She Ace That. It's your host, Alexandra. And before we dive into today's conversation, let's talk about the She Ace That collection wall. If you've been following along, you know I've been collecting meaningful items from guests that either represent their story or journey or who they are. And this week is an awesome item. So this is from Leah Wilton LeBoy, which was definitely one of my favorite episodes. She's just the best in general. And she gave me a little Utah volleyball. And she wrote on it, she goes, Ute Nation loves She Ace That. And that was like the sweetest thing ever. But it's super cute. I'm so excited to put this on the wall. And yes, I'm going to be working on it this next month. I have so many amazing items and I'm just trying to like coordinate where I'm laying everything out at the moment. But it's going to turn out so amazing with everything I've gotten so far. And so I just want to thank Leah so much for this. She was a part of season 2 of this year and truly an honor to have her a part of it. For those who haven't listened to that episode yet, Leah was a setter her entire volleyball career. We had such an amazing conversation about her recruiting journey, the mental side of playing at the D1 level, and what it's really like to balance being a student athlete in general. She gave us so much insight into setting, the pressure, the decision making, the leadership that's required on every single play. Definitely go back and listen to it. A really well-rounded view of the transfer portal and everything in between, and how the setter position shapes you as a leader beyond the court, which is also what She Ace That's all about. So go Utes, and thank you, Leah, for this mini volleyball that now has such a special place in my heart and for the wall. I love these conversations too because it just gives me another connection to additional colleges. Now I get a way to have a special connection to it and a reason. This past weekend was huge for me and She Ace That in general. I got to be at the Dynamite Volleyball Tournament in person this weekend in Southline, Michigan, and it was special getting to connect with athletes, parents, and coaches face to face. And I got to sell some apparel. I got some people to connect with me on social media and my emails that are on my website also, by the way. If you do sign up for the emails on sheacethat.com, you'll get a free trial ready ebook, which I think is really cool. And it was really cool just to see people actually wearing She Ace That at a volleyball tournament and supporting She Ace That's mission in real life. And it just is really special to me. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity and Dynamite Volleyball Club taking a chance on me. I have to give a massive shout out to Al and Rob, the club directors at Dynamite Volleyball. They are seriously the most genuine, best people in the whole world. That club is so lucky that they are the foundation of it. The way you run your club, the culture you've built, the way that, you care about athletes and families, like that stands out compared to other clubs in a heartbeat. And it's exactly what volleyball should be about. It's not always about the money. It's not always about being the biggest club in the state. It's about the genuineness that backs it and the hard work that goes into it. And I'm so grateful for this ongoing partnership with She Ace That and Dynamite Volleyball Club. I'm hoping to help them out with some clinics and tryouts this summer, which will be just an awesome way for me to get back into in-person stuff. And we had our first giveaway winner this weekend at the tournament. You pretty much got an entry if you signed up for the email on the website or followed on social media. There were additional entries. And we did have a winner named Alyssa that I reached out to and DM'd. So looking forward to giving her some free apparel. And definitely some more giveaways are coming, which I'm really excited for, and a lot of other announcements that I'll probably tell you all in the next month. So make sure you're following along on social media so you don't miss out. So I want to shift gears a little bit before we get into this episode with Elise today. And I want to talk about the Super Bowl. And no, I'm not going to give you a full football breakdown. I love my Detroit Lions and I'll watch football any day. I want to talk about it from an athlete perspective. I couldn't help but feel so bad for the Patriots during like the last 5 minutes of the game. You pretty much know you're losing a football game when you're down by multiple touchdowns in the last 5 minutes, right? Like anything can happen. That's the exciting thing about sports. You never want to say you lost yet or you won yet because there's crazy, crazy things that happen. And that's what makes it so fun and passionate to watch. I just sat there I think it's because of my She Ace That mental model brain where I'm thinking of things from the perspective of what I hear from professional athletes and their struggles, what I hear from collegiate athletes and their struggles. And I didn't care who won. Like normally I wouldn't feel bad for a team that lost. But from an athlete perspective, it's so tough, right? Like you are playing in front of the largest crowd you'll ever play in your life. You're on the biggest stage and you're actively losing. Like, you're accepting in the moment while you still have to perform on the field that you pretty much lost already. How do you dig up what's deep inside you? How do you get through those last 5 minutes while being realistic and pretty much accepting the fact that you lost? Do you give up? Do you keep fighting even though the outcome is more than likely not going to change? What goes through their minds? I just was thinking even deeper about like the mental health of professional athletes. Like, it's so cool to be at the Super Bowl, regardless of winning or losing, of course, but they are expected to perform. And some of them have never played in a Super Bowl or in front of that many people in their life. Should it change from what they are used to normally in huge stadiums? Probably not. But the stakes are so high in these environments. They're expected to go home after a loss, right? While the other team is probably celebrating that they won the Super Bowl. And then what? Your season's done. You could play again next year, and hopefully you do, but there's a chance that you might not get re-signed if your contract's not extended, and you more than likely might not end up at a Super Bowl again. So I feel like it's just so many factors, and like those highs and lows of sports need to be talked about more. And the professional athletes I've interviewed on this podcast do struggle with this. I just interviewed Holly Tolliver, who was a Michigan State University volleyball player. She also played for Athletes Unlimited and overseas. She's had pretty much every experience possible. And even her experience is like, what happens now that I'm done? There's no rule book. There's no guide to say, hey, this is what happens when you lose the Super Bowl, and these are the things that you use to cope. Nope, you're just kind of on your own, and you go back into normal life, and you're not really an athlete the next day anymore. It's such a crazy concept that only so many people get to experience. So part of me does not feel jealous of what those athletes have to feel and go through, because it is, again, that very high highs and probably the very low lows that don't have a rule book to them. There's no clear path, and it's just terrifying for so many athletes. So I just wanted to kind of quickly touch on that thought process that I was having during the game, because again, it's all Chase mental model focus. So it's not something I would ever normally think watching it. But I'm like, I have so many more insights and tools now where it was painful to watch the last bit for me. And I'm sure most people felt that way. I'm sure it was a huge mental toll to push through and try to perform when you know you already lost. So one last thing before we get into today's episode. I was scrolling TikTok yesterday. A Nike ad came up from years ago. So relevant to what we talk about on this podcast, but also why I started this podcast. And I think it's incredible where we've come in the sports world. Like, I've been fortunate enough to have Ellen Dempsey, the executive director of the Side Out Foundation, if you've done Dig Pink for your schools, has been on the podcast. She was the winningest coach in Hiram College history. She's a volleyball legend, okay? And she was playing sports when Title IX was passed. When females could play sports is when she started to play sports, okay? Like in high school, that's when, I think it was like right when she was about to go to college or right in high school is when they actually allowed females to be athletes, which I think is insane. There are people alive right now that were here at a time where they were not allowed to run a marathon. They were not allowed to play in the biggest tennis match. It's just baffling to me that it was in this lifetime of these generations. Fortunate for how quick we are able to try to drive change, but it doesn't change the fact that like we weren't given these opportunities until people vouched for them, until people stood up for them. And it still took time. Like, there was still a lot of pushback. So I saw a video yesterday of men trying to stop a female from running the Boston Marathon. She was the first female to run it. And you saw these other men stand up, though, and push the guys off that were trying to stop her. And like, she needed allies and she got them. But it was so insane that that woman is still alive. So the Nike commercial that I saw says, if we show emotion, we're called dramatic. If we want to play against men, we're nuts. And if we dream of equal opportunity, delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged. When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry, we're hysterical, irrational, or just being crazy. But a woman running a marathon was crazy. Officials tried to pull her off. A woman boxing was crazy. A woman dunking a basketball, crazy. Coaching an NBA team, crazy. A woman competing in a hijab, changing her sport, landing a double cork 1080, or winning 23 Grand Slams, having a baby, and then coming back for more. Crazy, 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 and crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine, but just show them what crazy can do. That statement hit me right in the chest. And I was like, that is exactly what we're doing here for She Aced That and want to continue to do in every aspect of life. We're celebrating the women who are told they're too much, too emotional, too ambitious, too bold, the ones who are rewriting what's possible. I think it was from a 2019 Super Bowl commercial. Until you hear it, until you really think about the tangible things and the tangible paths that women have paved for themselves, you kind of forget what we're capable of and the change we can make in this world. And so I just hope if anybody takes anything from that today, it's that if you have passion and drive, you can accomplish anything. So that leads me perfectly into today's guest. Today, I am sitting down with Elise Hardesty-Irvin, also known as Let's Talk Volleyball and the Volleyball Friend on social media. Elise is a full-time NAIA college coach, a club coach, and the creator behind truly one of the most authentic and relatable volleyball content accounts out there. Before she was a coach, Elise was a setter who played at the highest levels, and her journey was anything but easy. She dealt with multiple concussions, including a traumatic brain injury her freshman year of high school that kept her out for 11 months. She experienced the ups, a devastating mental block during her junior year of college that made her body physically unable to perform, even though she knew exactly what to do. She transferred schools. She got married, she played through COVID, and ultimately walked away from a fifth year to step into coaching. And now she's taking everything she learned from those hardships and pouring it into the athletes she coaches and the community she built online, which is how I found her. And I'm so grateful to have found Elise. In this conversation, we're talking about what it really takes to be a setter, the mental fortitude, the leadership, the constant feedback, her advice for athletes dealing with injuries and mental blocks, recruiting truths that every athlete and parent need to hear, how she started Let's Talk Volleyball after feeling burnt out and then falling back in love with the sport, conflict resolution for teams, and the one piece of advice she'd give her freshman year self, which I think we all need to hear. This is one of those conversations that's going to stick with you, whether you're a setter, a coach, a recruit, or just someone who loves volleyball. There's something in here for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Elise Hardesty-Irvin. Elise, welcome to She Aced That.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. I have to admit, I feel super underqualified. Like, I just set up my phone and just chat about volleyball. So just the opportunity to continue just sharing my love for the sport and continue to just talk about volleyball. I'm just really grateful. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thanks for being here. And I reached out to Elise because I loved her content. We'll definitely give everybody her social media handles after the podcast as well. So you guys can all check out all the amazing stuff that she has to talk about. So before we dive in back to like the origin of your story, getting into sports and volleyball in general, can you tell people a little bit about where you're at now and what you are up to these days?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So right now I am a full-time college coach at an NAIA school and as an assistant. So I get to say that I do volleyball full-time, which never thought that I'd get to say that. Never really saw myself here. But yeah, it's super exciting to say like, yeah, I do volleyball full time. So I'm doing that. I also coach club volleyball. I have 17's team this year. We'll play in like Liberty Division, so national caliber team. And so far, we're only a little bit into the season, but so far I love this group of girls. I'm super excited to see what they're going to do. And I've already told them multiple times, like, this team is spoiling me. They're great. They work hard. They like each other. They have lots of fun. So, and then, yeah, I'm doing TikTok. I don't know, I guess, in whatever spare time I have. And then super busy. Also have another part-time job working at my local church. And ironically, working in our youth ministries, keep working with teenagers and young adults. I've just found myself kind of in that niche and just having a gift, I guess, for just relating to people in their high school and early college years.
You impact so many kids' lives in so many ways. And I'm really excited to dig into like the 17U club side of it and college coaching, because I feel like there's a lot there that will help people. So I do want to go back to the beginning. When did volleyball come into your life and what made you fall in love with the sport?
So I started playing volleyball for the first time my 7th grade, school year. It was the first opportunity I had to play volleyball. I didn't have a school team any time before then. So 7th grade rolls around and my sister had played. And so I was like, okay, but that's what I'm going to do this fall. I grew up in a very active household where we were always doing something, always committed to some sort of sports activities. And growing up doing soccer, and my mom swam in college, so she made us do competitive swimming and just all the things. And so always just looking for what's next. So volleyball came up and I was, yep, I want to do it. I'm super excited. And immediately I could just by my love for the sport, I was good at it more than other things I was trying to do. And it just became really clear that that was what I was going to do. And so pretty much everything else fell off the table and we started doing volleyball. Like from the beginning, it was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And so from there, I immediately stopped all of the other activities I was doing and played club that season as well. And my 7th and 8th grade year, I played in my hometown locally, was not a national team. It was very much maybe a regional team you'd consider it, but even then, like that's kind of a stretch. So very small local club, but really got to cultivate my love for the game. And I was super lucky to have an All-American setter as my club coach for my 8th grade year. And she really invested into me and spoke life into me and encouraged me and mentored me and pushed me to consider playing at a higher level. And so starting my freshman year of high school, which in retrospect, whenever I say this, I'm like, wow, we were really extreme. But we decided to go to a national level team and club. And so I was driving 2.5 hours one way for club practice 3 days a week for all 4 years of high
Wow.
school. Yeah, so that I could do that and, got the opportunity to play in qualifying USA, qualifying Open my junior year on one of the teams I was on, placed 17th in Open at nationals. Like it's really cool experiences that came out of that. And so it was a huge commitment. I mean, I genuinely, it was insane at times, but my mom and I would just get in the car and drive for about 2.5 hours and I'd do my homework and then I'd practice and we'd come home and it was late. I mean, I practiced 8 to 10. And so we'd get
Oh my
back a
gosh.
little after and go to bed, wake up and do it again. So really just developed a super deep love and passion for the sport. And I just had opportunities that presented themselves along the way. I think it was probably this is back whenever there were no recruiting rules. So
Yeah.
I'm committed to playing college kind of around late sophomore year of high school. Committed to play at a Division II school in my state, which was important to me. I wanted to stay kind of close to home. So I committed to play there and started playing there, went off to college. And, it was good, but I also had struggled a lot with concussions. I had a TBI from volleyball my freshman year of high school. Uh, had 2 back-to-back concussions, and then I got hit really hard. And I was out. It was in January of my freshman year, and I was out. From then, I didn't get to play high school, and I came back the following club season to play. So
Wow.
managing that. And so my freshman year of college, I get there and same situation, 2 concussions back to back within
Oh
about
my
2 weeks.
gosh.
The rest of the season. And that's kind of been part of my journey is just managing injuries and severe injuries, right? Like not just like I keep twisting my ankle, like things that, we continue to meet with my concussion specialist and be like, how is this going to impact me long term? Do I need to stop playing at some point? And all of those things. So managing
Wow.
that. And then my junior year of college rolls around and I've earned the starting spot and I've worked my butt off and I've been injury free for like almost 2 years at this point, right? It's like supposed to be my time. I get the yips. I mentally shut down. My body shuts down. I'm not able to play. Like it is a total mental block. And if you've ever experienced that as an athlete or seen somebody experiencing that as an athlete, I think the best word to describe it is just devastating because
Yeah.
it's you've trained. Your body knows exactly how to perform and knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing and your brain's not letting it happen. So that was a very difficult time that I still even struggle to not have regrets about. Like my brain wants me to look back and feel shame about that. And so fighting that all the time, like, yep, that's just where I was and that's what happened. And it was a difficult part of my life and of my volleyball journey. So I started working with a sports psychologist. As Division II level, we didn't have a sports psych on staff. So I had to go to somebody working in private practice. And he just kind of helped me manage kind of what was going on. And I got through that season, not well, but I got through it. And at that point, I actually ended up getting engaged to my high school sweetheart that December of my junior year of college. And so as we were kind of discussing like some of the life changes that were going to happen, we decided that we are going to get married that May. So like 5 months from when we got engaged, we decided like, okay, this is kind of what our life is going to look like. My husband was going to graduate earlier than I was. And some of these things started to kind of unfold where it just made sense for us to move back to our hometown. And so an opportunity presented itself completely organically. I wasn't necessarily looking to transfer. It was just kind of some of these things were coming up that I was like, oh man, I don't know if where we're at right now is the best fit for my husband to go back and continue on his grad school journey. And I was changing my major. There's just like some things that were just happening. And so organically, this opportunity that from a coach that I had grown up playing around in my hometown to transfer to an NAIA school back in our hometown, outside of our hometown. And so I did for my senior year, my last year. And ironically, I made that decision in like February. And then of course, like 3 weeks later, COVID hits.
Yeah.
We're all sent home and everything kind of just goes off the wall anyways. So I ended up playing my last year at an NAI school, married, very different situation and experience than a lot of people have. But I have to say like that was a really amazing opportunity because it was a top 10 NAI school. We were ranked, we beat top 10 schools, we balled out, we had a really fun season because it was COVID. We played in the fall and the spring. And we made it to the national tournament. We lost in the NAIA version of the Sweet 16. So it was really cool. And one of those things that you can look back and say, I am really blessed to have been a part of that experience and to have played at that high of a level. And so, yeah, that's kind of where my volleyball journey ends. I had a COVID year and I decided not to take it because a college coaching opportunity literally just, or again, organically rolled my way. And it was like, okay, I guess this is where I'm going. And a lot of people work really hard to get into college coaching. And
Mhm.
it showed up on my front door. And I said, okay, I guess I'm going to be done playing. And that's kind of when I made the transition to coaching.
It's amazing how everything works out for a reason and,
Yeah.
things organically can fall into your lap, and it's always amazing when those opportunities happen. You said you just brought up so many things though that I'm like keeping tabs in my brain. So
Yes.
first, I want to commend you for the driving to practice that far, because I feel like so many like if anybody's listening and you only have like a 20-30 minute drive to practice,
I
it's
know.
not that bad. It's not
Yes.
2.5 hours. And like that just shows your commitment and your grit and your passion for the sport. And I really look up to you for that. It's amazing. And I feel for you on all the concussions, which I definitely want to take a deeper dive into. And congratulations on getting married too. I think it's very
Yeah.
special to have a high school sweetheart. My husband and I are high school sweethearts as well. And I think it's just really fun to meet other people who have, a similar experience where you guys pretty much grew up together and like you're
Yes.
going through all
100%.
these formative years of your life, college, like making
Mhm.
these bigger life choices of adjustments and still finding a way to fulfill volleyball and coaching, in your life and in all of that. So back to your concussions, was this just something that would happen? Like you would get unlucky and get hit by a ball? Like how did these come about? And I would love to understand, more of your recovery journey. I just feel like it's such a hard thing. I had one friend at club at Michigan State, she like
Mhm.
rolled on the ground and knocked her head pretty good and was out for most of the rest of the season. And so I just think it's something, since it's not always tangible to see, like you're saying, like a sprained ankle or something like that, it's
Mhm.
a lot harder to navigate.
Yeah. Honestly, I think in talking to my concussion specialist at the time, a lot of it's just genetic. A girl can take the same ball to the head and be fine. And then another one is going to have a concussion from it. So I think started on pretty early in middle school, even just like random things. Like I dove for a ball, my teammate next to me dove for a ball, and she ended up kicking me in the face. Like
Wow.
totally random stuff like that. And then what the concussions that kind of led up to my big one was again just kind of random. So
Hmm.
we had a team bonding at a park. I was pushing my friend on a tire swing and bent down to grab her phone that had fallen and came back and hit me in the face. Just like the
Yeah.
silliest things. And then from that kind of predisposed me a little bit to be sensitive to those. Once you have one concussion, it's easier to get more. So then I got hit in the head from like a serve. And then the big one was a line shot down from the outside. I was a setter, so I was playing right back. So that line shot down from the outside straight to the face. And yeah, then that was it. It was just one ball and that was it. And then yeah, moving into the ones I got in college, the first one was again, I think just a line shot from
Hmm.
the outside. But then truth is I came back too early. And I lost track of the ball. Whenever I was in defense, I just couldn't keep track of it. I had no idea where that ball was coming. And it was not a
Wow.
hard hit, but I was like 2 weeks after the other one. could not track the hitters on the other side and just hit me straight in the face.
That's so hard. I give you so much credit. And I think it's also hard because like we all want to get back to our normalcy. We want to get back to the sport we love. And it's hard to always allow yourself time to rest for the long-term picture when
Yeah.
we are competitive athletes. So I just
Uh-huh.
give you so much credit. And I'm glad you still have it in your life. I'm glad you still were able to play and like make the proper decisions for yourself, even if you have to transfer. And then that's another point that you made too, was like even going from, let's say, NCAA D2 to NAIA, it's still like an incredible opportunity because you were able
Uh-huh.
to move closer to home again. You were
Yes.
able to just be able to still play the sport in a competitive way at a great level. You guys did so good there too. There's so many options out there for your current situation and what you're going through, and there is support. So, do you have any advice on concussions or injuries in general for athletes who may be going through something right now in critical time of their volleyball career?
Yeah, I think developmentally it makes sense for somebody who's even in college and under to feel like it's the end of the world because
Yeah.
that's the way your brain is processing this. Like,
Mm.
I'm injured and I'm not playing. It's over. My life is over. And I definitely felt that at times. But I think now, as an adult who has a little bit more of a developed brain and has a little bit more life experience, I have a little bit more context and can say, like, this is hard. You don't have to deny that it's hard. You don't have to deny that it's a challenge and that you're going to have emotions about it. But I would also encourage anybody who's struggling with injuries to take a step back too and appreciate where you've been, appreciate everything that's yet to come, and understand that there's so much more to life than your playing volleyball or you playing right now. It doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to be the end of your journey in any way, shape, or form. And there's always going to be continued opportunities, even if they don't look the way that you wanted them to or thought that they would. But I think it's just very normal to whenever you're 13 and you're being told you're not going to be able to play for 11 months, where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing and the world's ending and my life is over. And it doesn't have, it's not, there is more life outside of your sport.
There is always a bigger picture. I hear so many different injury stories, and 99% of those athletes, even when it seems devastating or like they might not be able to come back, or it's the last season, like their senior year in high school, like most of them found a way eventually. So
Yeah.
I just hope that people take that into consideration from a future motivational standpoint instead of sulking in it in the moment, even though you're validated too, because it absolutely sucks. But
Yes,
like
totally.
long term, you can get it back in the way that works best for you. And sometimes weird things happen for a reason to take you from something even worse or like
Yeah.
project you into something better. And it's just time that we all have to kind of accept moving forward with it. So I just appreciate you sharing all that with us. And one other thing you brought up was the yips. So I know you explained it, and it's like definitely a mental block. I've had plenty of
Mhm.
athletes go through this. You met with a sports psychologist, obviously
Mhm.
external of your college. Can you give athletes who are maybe experiencing them themselves currently any advice on tangible steps to kind of get through that tough season where they're experiencing that?
Yeah. Well, first thing I would say is like, there's nothing wrong with you. I think that was
Yeah.
part of what made it so hard is that you feel like there's something wrong with you, and that just adds to the anxiety and adds to the performance issues that you're having. So that would be the first thing I said. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. And, there's an entire world of sports psychology and so many different things that can help. But I think, again, I would just say, like, there's another side to this. This isn't the end of the world. But from like a tangible, practical skill set, I think learning to be present is probably the most important thing that I learned. Is what starts me going downhill as a player was thinking about past mistakes or worrying about future mistakes. And so the ability to stay present and think about what is in front of me right now in this moment, learning skills to do that was really important. So just constant mindfulness practice of just as soon as my mind starts wandering, no judgment, no judging those thoughts, even just bringing myself back to this moment. So using like reset words, deep diaphragmatic breathing, all of those things. And those are things that I teach my athletes now just to equip them because I think that those are good for any sort of performance situation. So yeah, just staying present in the moment, not worrying about what's going to happen, not worried what's happening in the future. And then I think also just finding a lot of security in yourself and who you are. I think some of that spirals whenever we start thinking about, oh my gosh, my teammates are mad at me, my coach is mad at me, I'm losing the game for us, and start thinking about all the external factors. Whenever I think it's really beneficial to have a really strong sense of self and be really secure in your abilities, secure in the value that you have as a person, as a human being, and as an athlete. And so being able to block out some of that noise at times, certainly still listen to your coach, still interact with your teammates, but being able to find security in yourself and in who you are, I think helps all of that external noise coming into your brain.
Two of the key themes that I always see when I'm talking to coaches, especially or previous players, is the internal self confidence tied to perfectionism. We all have that when we're in others athletes. It's how we're raised. It's what we
Yeah.
experience. Like performance is everything, or at least that's
Mhm.
what I was trained like growing up. And I know a lot of people are. I think it's a little bit better now that it's not always
Mhm.
perform, perform, perform. You do have to take care of yourself at the end of the day. Growing up, I had wonderful coaches, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really worried about body maintenance and preventing injuries. It was more just like on a performing basis. And I think when you take a step back and you're like, okay, let's focus on where my internal confidence comes from. Let's focus on not just relying on the mistakes I just made, but also making sure that like I'm healthy mentally and physically
Mhm.
to better myself and continue to grow instead of just focusing on the negative and feeling like you're pushing through something that maybe you're not ready to yet. And I think the yips a lot of people experience, like I've had friends in high school go through it. I've gone through a spell myself, and it's like you just kind of have to get through that mental block to get back on track for
Mhm.
yourself.
Totally.
You stated that you were a setter, which I love
Mhm.
because I give setters so much credit. They deserve all the glory in the world. I started as a setter my freshman year in high school and then eventually
Mhm.
changed to a middle, but I have the utmost respect before I could even fully set to the outside.
Yeah.
All my teammates were probably like, oh my gosh. But so it's a unique position, definitely like the
Mhm.
quarterback of the court. So what drew you to setting and how did you know that position was going to be the rest of your volleyball career?
Yeah, I know a lot of athletes change positions a lot. Even like you just said, you started out as
Mhm.
one and you move to something else.
Yeah.
And you have girls who are truly utility players. They played every single position. I only ever played center. That was the only thing I ever did. I happened to be standing right back whenever we were explaining a 6-2 rotation, my 7th grade, and we were like explaining how rotations work. My coach was like, "Okay, so if Elise was in right back, she would be my setter," and so we did it out that way. And I was like, actually, I really like that, and I don't wanna not be in control of the game. I don't wanna go an entire 3 rotations and touch the ball once. I just
Mhm.
really saw all of the things that I loved about setting, and I just kinda got threw into it and never asked to be taken out of that position and just kind of assigned myself like, "Okay, I guess I'm a setter now." So it really just was kinda happenstance that I was thrown into the setter role, but it was immediately the right fit. I was never a very, like, powerful player, so whenever I would, like, hit and hitting lines, I'd be like, "Meh." Like I was just never super just like powerful aggressive like that. I was really loved the finesse and the artfulness of setting and how that there's just so much fine motor in it instead of more of the gross motor. And so I just fell in love with that position and it was a good fit for me personally and it just kind of worked out that way. I wish I could say like, oh yeah, I just knew it was going to be for me, but like no, I really liked finesse, which fit, and I really liked being in control, which fit. So
It fits into your mentorship too, like you as a coach, you as a leader. And I think
Mhm.
setters are not given enough credit for how much they have to drive and lead on the court. Like if you are not a setter, you might not always understand what all that goes into it. And like you are your own mentor and most of the time captain, but leader on that team. And you're driving everything. You're the one watching the blocks on the other side, seeing who you need to set. You're the one making sure
Yes.
that everybody's on board on your side of the court. You're
Mhm.
hustling the hardest because you're not going to get a perfect pass every single time. And so
Mhm.
I just give, again, setters the most credit. I'm not shocked that you were a setter just because it speaks to who you are. But do
Mhm.
you have any advice for potential setters listening now or younger athletes who are maybe
Mhm.
thinking of becoming a setter, what they should be focusing on and your philosophies?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things that you said, you need to be able to see the game at a really high
Mhm.
level. You need to have really good court awareness. You need to understand how the game is played, what decisions need to be made when. There is definitely like an intellectual, analytical side of setting. And so I think if you're like really into that and you really like understand why certain decisions are made or when you make this decision or what combination of plays is going to be best, that's like totally up setter's alley. And then again, like you said, a lot of just like leadership and staying calm and competitive that I always like to say non-anxious presence. So just being able to just be there. And even if you're not necessarily knowing all the decisions, you're able
Mhm.
to be the glue and able to hold your serve receive and your middles and your pins and being able to orchestrate and manage all of those transitions every single play. I also think it just takes a really high amount of mental fortitude because you're touching the ball more than anybody else, which means that you're going to make more mistakes than anybody else. And I think there's also a demand for perfection from your as a setter because your hitter success is largely dependent on the ball that you're putting up and so I think just being able to learn that mental resilience and be able to take feedback and filter out what's important, what's not, and then move on from it, I think is really important. I think if you're somebody who gets offended when somebody tells you, like, hey, that's too low, hey, that's too high, you need to change this, probably not the right fit, because that's all you're getting all the time is just
Mhm.
feedback from your coach, feedback from your hitters, feedback from your passers. It's a lot of feedback and it takes a lot of mental skills to be able to sort through all of that feedback and use it appropriately.
Yeah, and not take it personally, right? Because like
Mhm.
every hitter likes different sets, every
Totally.
position's different. Like everybody has their own nitpicks. And even me looking back of when I was playing middle, I was like constantly giving my setter feedback because if
Yeah,
I wasn't, then we were never going to actually connect and
exactly.
understand like what worked best for both of us. And I think it's a two-way street. Like you really have to be respectful of what your setter's telling you in return too, because they are the one
Yes.
trying to run a specific offense.
Mhm.
And that's why I commend setters too, is because you are truly doing a different set to so many different hitters and
Yes.
girls during the same play, match, everything. And so
Mhm.
if people are in a situation where maybe they do have a hitter that might not be as open to the opposite way of feedback, do you have
Yeah.
any advice on them to like better connect or try to find a common ground?
Yeah, I think something that I teach my players is just conflict resolution skills. We have a clinic on it that we do, and they have to practice it, and it's really uncomfortable for them. But something that I
Yeah.
teach them is being able to use I statements. So, not you're hitting that wrong. You need to change this. I want us to be successful. How can we do that? I see that we're not connecting. What needs to change? And so, taking out some of that, like you, and making
Hmm.
it I and we. And I find that that kind of conversation is really helpful. And I think just again, keeping the big picture of like you're trying to be successful as a team. You're trying to make your hitter successful. It's not about you being right. And it can't be about you being right. It has to be about how can I contribute to the success of my team and contribute to our hitters being able to produce the way that they can and to the maximum of their abilities. I think just being able to keep that in mind and approach those players maybe aren't as receptive with that in mind. Like, okay, how can we work together? How can we um, be successful as a team instead of just you're not taking this well and you're this and you're that. Just come to it as a collective. But also, at times, like I said, like there's just a heavy filter that you have to use. And sometimes not all
Hmm.
feedback is helpful and not every single interaction you're gonna have is gonna be positive with your teammates. And so I think there just takes a skill to be able to just kind of let some of that stuff roll off your back and to be like, that's just not helpful right now. And that's something I say a lot as a coach. Like, is it even if it's true, doesn't mean it's helpful. So using those skills to be able to determine what's actually helpful in this moment, not necessarily what's right or what's true.
It goes for everything in life, off the court stuff too. It's like we're not
Mhm.
all going to agree. We're not all going to always have the same exact expectations or thoughts. And I think communication is number one and being receptive and just trying to find a balance, proceeding with curiosity versus jumping
Yeah.
to conclusion type
Mhm.
scenario is best. And I see that with, like, obviously it stems from the coaching philosophies too for teams, but the most successful teams out there are ones I feel like that can do that and find that
Mhm.
common ground and create that safe space where you're still allowed to voice your opinion on a specific set or play or something that you need to improve on, but also just accepting it and moving forward with it with the same end goal, like you were saying. Going to your coaching perspective. So, how has your player experience influenced
Mm.
how you coach now, especially at the higher levels that you are coaching at?
Yeah, I mean, so many ways. I think obviously all of the high levels that I was able to play at and see some really competitive levels kind of gives you some perspective. Not everything is a huge deal all the time. Helps you
Mhm.
stay patient, kind of understand how the process of learning and how the process of growth looks. But I would say, like, man, I think I would have never thought this at the time, but experiencing what I did with that with mental block, I think I'm a much more compassionate coach now than I ever would have been because there was a lot of stuff happening at my life at that time and things that felt hard. And it's never just the one thing that you see, the one screenshot, the one frame of the movie that you see of that person. There's a lot going on. And so I think just being able to approach my athletes as people and see them for a higher value outside of their talent, higher value than the way that they perform, and just understand that we don't play volleyball in a bubble. I wish we did, but we don't. So they're bringing in that argument with their parents. They're bringing in whenever something isn't right in their relationship with their boyfriend. They're bringing in that bad ACT score or that failed test. And so just being able to be compassionate about those things and understand that that's a reality. And we as adults and as coaches need to learn how to navigate that with them instead of just trying to squash all of the other things and say, none of it's relevant. Leave it all outside the court. Instead, giving them tools to stay present and to understand that we can enjoy this moment. We can give this moment everything that we have, and we will pick all those things up back later. Because they're not going anywhere. Those things, those failures, those hardships, those aches and pains in life are going to be there. So how can we just make the most of the opportunity that we have in front of us? So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just being able to approach my athletes as holistic people. And whenever I'm talking to recruits, on the phone and just like talking about my philosophy, I think that's probably the main thing that I tell them is like, I'm going to be hard on you. I'm going to demand a lot. I'm going to ask you to give me everything that you have every single day. But I also want communication, and I also understand that you're a person, and I understand that there's life. And so just that communication and that two-way street of letting me know what's going on in your life, and letting me know how things are going and all the things that are affecting you. Like that's just really important to me as a coach, to be able to yeah, just continue to keep things in perspective, continue to put things in context. I think is just such a big part of that mentorship that we get to do.
Absolutely. And coaches are human too, you know? So I think if
Mhm.
you lead with that intention and model that, then it's easier to be reciprocated. You're not like fighting for it as much, and you're given some grace. And especially in high school, you think you know everything, like our frontal
Mhm.
lobes aren't even developed yet. And so I think like looking back, I thought I knew more things from a skills perspective, mental perspective. And like until I got into coaching on the coaching side myself, I was like, oh, wow, I had so much to learn and figure out. And now I have so much more appreciation for my high school coaches than I had before.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. I wonder sometimes, I'm like, what did I even think I was doing? Like, how did I not know these things? Like, what was
It's
happening in my
crazy.
brain? Yeah, it's
Yeah, like, you don't know till you know, and then once you know, you're like, "Oh, yeah, hindsight 2020, and makes sense why, like, I'm wiser now," and we still
yes,
have more to learn, but that's the fun
exactly.
thing of doing this and talking about just different coaching philosophies and what
Mhm.
people lead with. I feel like I'm learning so much just by these conversations. I know that's why you started your social media too, but more people out there need to
Mhm.
have these conversations so we can learn from each other. I don't think there's, like, one person that has every single thing figured out. We always have ways
Yes,
to
exactly.
evolve. So you brought up the recruiting process a little bit. What do you
Mhm.
wish more players and families knew about recruiting?
Oh, where to start? It's
I
hard.
know.
It's a long process. Every single conversation I have with a recruit, I tell them like this is a marathon process. This is not a
Yeah.
sprint. You're not going to have two conversations with a college coach and that's going to be it. You're not going to send out 5 emails and you find the right fit for you. It is consistency. It is a long, grueling process. It requires constant decision making, pivoting, letting things go, seeking out new opportunities. So I think a lot, something that I've seen in my athletes, my high school athletes, is that they just kind of expect it to happen. Like they just like, coaches are going to find my profile and they're going to come watch me play and I'm going to land somewhere, which like for some athletes certainly does happen. But for the
And
majority, that's
that's what honestly I thought in high school. Like I
yeah.
mean, this was
Mhm.
obviously over 10 years ago now when I graduated, but like I just assumed that coaches reach out to me or my coach handles this. And now I'm like, wow, I didn't even try or like scrape the surface of what I could have. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm just always encouraging my athletes to stay persistent, keep
Mhm.
sending new emails, keep researching. Like maybe there's a school there that you've never even heard of and it's going to be the right fit for you. And also to keep your options open. The amount of DMs that I get from athletes that are like, "Hey, I want to play D1, blah blah blah. Here's my question." And I think that's great, right? Like certainly aim high, and if Division 1 is the right level for you, that's amazing. But for so many athletes it's not, and I think
Yeah.
that they write themselves off and they make the recruiting process so hard on themselves because they are so narrow-minded. Certainly keep those options available, like certainly look at Division 1. But also, like I said, I transferred from a mid to high level Division 2 to a high level NAI, and they were very comparable. And I would have never honestly considered NAI in high school, and I should have because the level was essentially the same. And I was really lucky at my NAI school. I had 3 All-American hitters, like insane talent. And I think you just count yourself out and count other opportunities out because it doesn't fit into like the girls that we see on TV playing. And so yeah, I would just encourage like be persistent, keep all of your options open, and also just keep going for it. Like have those conversations, learn what you like, learn what you don't like. There's things that you don't even know that you are going to have a preference about until you go visit a campus and you're like, "Oh, I actually don't want to be in a big city," or, "Oh, I didn't like that
Mhm.
drive. I don't want to be 8 hours from home." You're not going to like necessarily know those things until you do the process. So just keep learning about yourself and don't be afraid to just keep making adjustments along the way. I think that's just super important. I think if you go in, like, I want this kind of school and I'm only going to look at these opportunities. It's just like, oh man, it might not work out for you in that sense. So just, yeah, be open minded and keep learning about yourself and what is going to be a good fit for you.
If you love a sport enough, it doesn't have to be at the highest program, the highest levels. And realistically, so many, which is amazing, but so many athletes and girls play volleyball, right? At so many
Yeah.
different levels. They're starting to be looked at as freshmen or sophomores. They're starting to
Hmm.
commit, whether it's juniors or seniors. And
Hmm.
so there's very minimal spots. COVID impacted that a little bit too. I didn't realize how much the recruiting
Yes.
process was impacted with fifth years and everything like that.
Hmm.
But I think it's just interesting that we all need to give ourselves grace because there's only so many D1 spots. There's only so many
Yeah.
D2 spots. There's only so many D3 NAI spots. And,
Hmm.
you have to weigh the pros and cons of what you want. Like you said, you might not want to be going to a bigger school. It might not work for you, or you think you want to, and then you get there and you're like, what the heck am I doing? College is a huge transition in itself. Like just being a freshman at a
Yes.
college, whether that's small or big, your whole life's different. You're figuring out who you are, and adding being a student athlete on top of that is something that, yeah, sure, they might have tools to kind of help you through that in certain ways, but it's still going to be a lot on you and still really hard
Yes.
for you. And so that's why the transfer portal is a thing. You see a lot of girls
Hmm.
transferring from high programs and places that you'd assume like, hey, I'd stay here forever if I got the opportunity. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, that might not have worked out for them for various reasons. So I think it's just interesting to weigh all of those, regardless of like what your dream goal is. Sometimes you do have to realize that it might not be realistic or something that actually would make you as happy as you think it would, just for the
Exactly.
title or what you're going for.
Hmm.
So I appreciate you sharing all the recruiting insights. It is just such a unique world. And I think now, thank
Hmm.
gosh, with social media, it is talked about more, but it's just something
Yeah.
that, again, 10 years ago, I wouldn't even thought of how much I could have had control over.
Yeah. No, 100%. I remember we had at my club, we had somebody come in and talk to us about the recruiting process. And that was honestly my saving grace because we didn't know what I was doing.
Wow.
It was genuinely just like, I don't know, I'll go to some camps. I'll see what comes up. And yeah, like it just, I can't imagine not having those tools, that it has to be
Yeah.
super difficult navigating the recruiting process, having no idea like what you're supposed to do and no idea what's
Mhm.
out there and what your role is and what the college coach's role is and all of those things. It is certainly, like you said, becoming more transparent as social media continues and continue to talk about it. But yeah, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, 15 years ago, so totally different experience.
Do you have advice on when athletes should start reaching out to college coaches? I know there's rules about like being able to respond and dates, but
Mhm.
what should they do if they're just sitting here like, oh, that is something I want to look into?
I think I like to encourage athletes to start by just thinking about like what a good fit for you would be.
Uh-huh.
If you're really smart, I would look at Division 3. So many Division 3 schools are really high academic. So like maybe consider that. And I have some athletes that I've had that conversation with. It's like, listen, you're really smart and you're a good athlete, but I think that Division 3 might be the right fit for you just because of the demand on the academics. And I think that you would do well there. So just like stuff like that. Like how far do you want to go from home? How big of a campus do you want to be on? What kind of environment do you want to be a part of in terms of like opportunities on campus? Opportunities in the community, just all of those things, like figure out what's important to you and what's not. I always like to ask recruits whenever I'm talking to them on the phone, like, what are you looking for in a fit? And it's surprising how many girls haven't really thought about it. They're just, we're just like, I don't know, I'll see what lands. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I think it is good to know kind of what you're looking for and what you feel like a good fit would be. So starting that in like eighth and ninth grade. And then I would say honestly, it's not a bad idea to start reaching out to schools in ninth grade. You're not going to hear back from them, but it is good. I like seeing consistent names in my inbox, even if I'm not necessarily recruiting the class of 2029, right? I'm still seeing some of those names and maybe picking up faces at qualifiers whenever I'm out recruiting, being like, oh, yes, that was the girl that emailed me and keeping it in mind. So I would not expect an email back or to hear back from or that college coach or for them to come and watch me play at a qualifier. But it's also good practice to learn like how to send emails and how to
Mhm.
uh, create film and all of that stuff. It's really good practice. So I would say starting the kind of like ninth grade as whenever you can start that process. And certainly if you're behind that, like don't freak out, like you're fine. Like that's you can start at any point and there's still opportunities out there. And I like to say 10th grade should really start kind of creating your list of 25 schools, 5 reach schools, 5 safety schools, and kind of 15 in between. And really be consistent with emailing those coaches. I typically say like 5 to 6 months if you haven't heard back. Obviously, Division 1 is different because they can't reach out until your junior year. Then you kind of start adding schools. And I think the recruiting process really, really starts your junior year. for Division 1 starts in the summer, but honestly, I would say Division 2 and below, we're all kind of like really hitting the ground running right now. So like beginning go of the year for your junior year. And so that's whenever you just need to be available to take phone calls, reach out to lots of schools. Always check whenever you go to a qualifier, there's going to be a list of college coaches attending. Just email them, say, hey, this is what I'm
Mhm.
playing. I'd love to see you at my court. And that's honestly how I did almost all of my recruiting back in the day was I'd go to a qualifier, I'd see all the emails and we'd send the emails and they would show up. Um, and so I think, yeah, really that junior year is when things really pick up. But all of that practice, your ninth and 10th grade year is super important. And you might make a connection that's important for your recruiting process down the road. So you just never know. So I would say low expectations for your ninth and 10th grade year. Like, don't expect to be hearing back from Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
But that is really good practice and you're learning a lot of really valuable things and it might pay off down the road.
What people don't realize is how impactful those emails are, just like connections and starting to get your voice out
Mhm.
there and your name out there, tying a face to the name. And if you keep seeing it over and over, it's meaningful when you do care about a program, how passionate you are and excited you are to potentially play in college and kind of your background there. And so I don't think I definitely don't think it hurts to continue reaching out. Is there a cadence of how many times you should be reaching out to the same school during your high school
Oh,
years? Like,
it really depends, I think, on where you're at, like, if
yeah.
you're a sophomore, if you're a senior, and kind of, also the level that you're, like, the school that you're reaching out to. I think, for me at the NAIA level, and even I would kind of say, like, Division 3, Division 2, some of that can be lumped in as well. I would say, like, once a month, honestly, is kind of what I like to see, especially if I've talked to you on the phone and you know that I'm actively recruiting you. I like to hear from you once a month and just get updates on your life and your club season and new film and all of those things because that for me informs me that you're still interested. And whenever I don't hear from you for 6 months, it's kind of like, we maybe we're off their list and they just didn't let us know. And so yeah, I just say like once a month. And then if you like haven't heard back from that coach, I usually say like once a month for 6 months. And then after that, sometimes that means it's a no. Other times it doesn't. They might not be recruiting your class. They might be waiting for other offers to be either accepted or declined. There's a lot of things that can be going on. But at that point, at about 6 months in, is whenever I like to say to start adding more schools into those emails and broadening your list a little bit.
That's super helpful. I agree. And a one no answer doesn't mean no. And I would keep
Mhm.
going. And don't let that stop you. Thank you for all that recruiting advice.
Oh,
It's so important and so needed, and I really appreciate it. From a coaching perspective, what are your favorite skills to teach?
actually, I have a theory about this, and I'm not sure if
Okay.
it's true. I would love to pull social media at some point and ask.
Yeah.
I have always been like pigeonholed as a setters coach because I was a setter. I've actually had to learn how to teach setters because as a setter, I didn't watch setters play my entire life. I played. I know what it feels like. I didn't necessarily know what it looked like. So I was actually like totally green, totally new coach. I was actually a really good serve receive coach because I had stood at the net for 12 years watching those girls pass balls to me and seeing what that form looks like
Mm.
and being able to see the progress of like coach gives feedback, they make the change. That's what it looks like. As
Mhm.
opposed to setting, it's like I know what it feels like and it knows it feels like in my body, but I didn't necessarily have years and years of seeing it
Mhm.
from hundreds of other players. So I think that was a really interesting thing. And so I'm curious if other coaches have that experience of like the skill that you're probably strongest at coaching that maybe wasn't your positions. I personally, like I said, serve receive. I love it. It's straightforward. It's simple. It's all physics. I like how structured it is. I also really love blocking, which is kind of like a weird 180 from serve receive, but love blocking. I was a strong blocking setter. And so I love working on blocking. And I think more the game evolves, the more blocking has been an essential part and has really elevated and has really changed the way that the game is played. And so love being part of that and continuing to equip athletes to be solid blockers and really
Mhm.
put that into play. And impact the game from their blocking. But I do work with setters a lot, and I have learned what the visual cues look like at this point. I've learned how to be a good setters coach, but it definitely took me a little bit of time to translate what I remembered feeling to knowing what it looks like in other people.
Yeah, it is interesting your viewpoint on it. I agree. From a coaching perspective, I love passing and serve receive as well,
Mhm.
because I think it's the foundation for everything. You need to
Mhm.
have a good defense. Obviously, offense is important, but like defense,
Mhm.
I do feel like is critical. And especially just serve receive, even being a middle, I wasn't passing like ever in games and,
Yeah, same.
minimally in practice and drills. But I think knowing, especially as a middle, when I need this, what I know the setter will need to get me a good middle ball, or else
Mhm.
then the middle's kind of out of system, which always drove me nuts. It all
Yes, yeah.
starts with a pass. It's really cool to just be passionate about that, even though that wasn't our niche, but seeing it from an outside perspective, what we think and like noticed over our years in a setter and
Yeah.
middle hitter position.
Mhm. Exactly.
I do want to let you highlight more about your social media in
Mhm.
general and kind of how the Volleyball Friend and Let's Talk Volleyball started. So, when did you start that? Where did the idea come from? And how did you get that name? Because it's really great.
Yeah, thanks. After being done playing, I felt pretty burnt out. I mean, you play at such a high level. And so
Hmm.
I kept coaching and I kept looking for an off ramp from coaching. I was like pretty ready to be done for a couple of years with volleyball, totally. But just like kept signing up for things and I kept just on the path. And at some point, I was like, okay, I guess this is just what I'm doing. And somewhere along that line, that burnout ended and I got that fire in my belly for volleyball again. And so I didn't watch volleyball. I didn't really pay attention to what was happening in the volleyball world. I just showed up to practice for about 2 years. And so in that 2 year span, I was totally out of the loop of what was happening. And so whenever I decided, I was like, actually, you know what? I kind of want to watch college volleyball again. I kind of want to get back into that world. I
Yeah.
was having a hard time understanding like who are the big players? Like who's good right now? Who are the new players? Certainly knew some like the fifth years because they had been playing whenever I had been playing. But yeah, I was just like really curious. And so I knew that my husband watched a ton of like football content on his social media and also on YouTube. And I was like, there's got to be something like that out there for volleyball. And at the time, there wasn't so much.
Hmm.
So I was like, I don't know, I guess I can just kind of post as I learn, like what's happening. And so that's kind of where the idea started from, was just updating on NCAA content in women's volleyball world. And so started that and really just, I don't know, it was totally on a whim. Like I wish that I had like this really long-term plan and I was like, oh, this is gonna be so good. I was like, I just want to talk about volleyball. So I guess let's talk volleyball. That just
I
kind of
love
came
it.
organically. And I didn't, the volleyball friend really just came from a place of like, I want to be approachable. I want to be down to earth. I don't want to have this really, I don't know, like business title or anything like that. So
Mhm.
I just, that again was kind of on a volleyball, like volleyball friend was just on a whim. I wasn't even sure, like, do I say you're a volleyball friend or am I a volleyball friend or just volleyball friend? I don't know. So I just kind of typed it out and I never changed it and just stuck.
I love it.
So yeah, it just really happened totally just kind of, I was just like, I guess I'll just create content and talk about what's happening. And then season ended, and I was like, oh, I have nothing to talk about. And that's when I started kind of exploring like what I coach volleyball and I'm super excited about it at this point in my life. And I had like literally that also kind of propelled me to apply for the college coaching position and get back into college coaching. And that kind of was all just kind of felt like it's snowballing. Like I was really excited about the sport again and I wanted to keep talking about it. And I was having all these new experiences and all this stuff. And so that's whenever I kind of switched to just talking about volleyball in general, talking about the recruiting process and talking about skill development and the mental skills and just all of it, just kind of be a
Mhm.
little inclusive. And I certainly do still watch college volleyball and make some posts about it, but it really, it just has evolved kind of organically and naturally into what fits more like what I'm doing now. So yeah, I still am like cringe at myself all the time. Like
Oh
I
my
have all
gosh.
my closest friends don't even know that this is a part of my life. They don't know that I create content. Like it's so uncomfortable for me to talk about it. And I like, especially the worst part of it is whenever like another coach in my conference will come up to me at a game and say, hey, I saw your post about this. I'm like, oh no, please don't talk to me about this in real life. That's my fake life.
I get that though. It's like it's vulnerable to put yourself
Yeah.
out there. I mean, I get like weird anxiety about it too. And it goes back to your own advice about your inner self-confidence and knowing
Yes.
where, it's stemming from. It does. But it is hard and it's
Mhm.
vulnerable. And I think, that was part of my hesitation with starting this too. I was like, can I really put myself out there in a confident manner that's not going to keep me up at night, or that I'm not going to get yelled at behind screens on social media? But I think at the end of the day, we're helping so many more people than like hindering ourselves. That's something we just have to keep relying on and
Yeah.
falling back on.
Totally. And I honestly think constantly talking about volleyball, even when I'm not in the gym, has honestly, like, propelled my growth as a coach exponentially. Like,
Mhm.
I how to be more articulate, and that's something that I've always really struggled with as a coach. I've always said, like, I'm horrible at explaining drills. Like, that's something I'm constantly working at. And I've actually seen huge improvement in that because something that I've been doing recently is sharing my practice plans. So I have to
Yeah.
talk about the drills and, luckily I get to redo it, but that's like me learning how
Mhm.
to talk those drills and talk about volleyball and talk about what I'm doing and be more articulate with my ideas and my perspectives and stuff like that. So it's honestly just been really, really good for me. And I just keep reassuring myself of that. Like, even if it's silly, even if nothing else comes out of it, I have made myself a better coach because of it.
And you've helped people along the way. You don't have to be posting it in your house before you go to practice or in the car. Talk about your philosophies to yourself out
Mhm.
loud so that when you go to
Yes.
your athletes, you have something to fall back on. And sure, it's not
Mhm.
going to be perfect every time we talk about X, Y, and Z skills, drills, our philosophies, anything. But when we are speaking it out loud, it brings our brain to buy into it too and bring that confidence with it. You don't have to like post it on social media like we do, but at the same time, I think practicing what we
Mhm.
preach is so important, and it makes athletes buy into us a lot quicker when we're leading with that genuine confidence and intentions. It's not cringe, it's amazing. It goes to show though, even watching college volleyball, because I was doing a few things like that too, and I have always been into college volleyball, but I never was taking the time to sit down and watch an entire tournament. And I mean,
Mhm.
I don't have all the time now, but I was
Right.
catching things up in different time after games or
Mhm.
during. And I think analyzing the play at that level, seeing why things work, seeing why the NCAA tournament this year shifted everything. And the teams that I thought for sure were going to make it to the finals or the quarterfinals or semifinals was eye-opening of
Yes.
potentially the things that came into play of why they didn't. And having that
Mhm.
external perspective and taking the time to analyze it from everything that
Mhm.
we know from our own coaching journeys just adds more tools to our toolbox of those highest level teams, which
Yeah.
is super interesting.
Yes, exactly. I loved whenever they would show the, like, in the locker room, what the coaches were saying, and, like,
Yeah.
that's whenever I'd be, like, super dialed in, like, what is their message? How are
Mhm.
they, giving their athletes confidence? How are they empowering them? Like, what is their message? I think that, like, that kind of stuff just is so cool, and I think as an athlete, but also as a coach, you just have to be a sponge. You just have to be taking in all the new information and, different perspectives and just be super willing and open to learning something new.
And every team needs different things too and
Mhm.
goes through different things. You need core values for your team, but then there's different variables on the outside that you always have to be adaptable to. That goes for higher intensity situations in NCAA tournament where you could be undefeated, like Nebraska being undefeated all year. And I firmly believe, and I know this isn't always a thing, but any team can beat any team on the right day, right time, depending on
Mhm.
mentality, injuries, kind of where you're at, where your mentality is towards the other opponent. Like you can think that, well, we're going to sweep this team. And then I've seen it be the complete opposite. And it's like,
Mhm.
holy cow, who would have thought that could happen? But that's the fun of it too, I think.
Yeah.
And fans are pretty intense. So if you're not rooting for their team, that's like a whole thing, but it should be fun. I
Mhm.
love a good, like competitive environment and underdog story too, but it all should just be in a fun manner. Like that's the point of rivalries. That's the point of
Mhm.
these things.
Yes.
So being a content creator and sharing awesome things in the volleyball space, are there any things that, with your algorithm or in general that you see are missing? Or like what conversations do you wish more people were having on like a visible platform?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I think there's been a lot of discussion about the transfer portal and our perspectives from the outside, but I've
Mhm.
seen a significant increase in girls sharing their stories by going through the transfer portal. And I think that's really valuable and something that has kind of been missing. So I think it's been really good to see girls sharing their stories of like why I'm actually transferring, what I'm looking for, how it is being in the transfer portal and literally not having a home, knowing that, like, you
Yeah.
might be moving to a new city to go to new school in, like, 2 or 3 weeks, and you don't know where that is.
Yeah.
Or, what if it doesn't pan out? And, the anxiety about being in the portal and all of those things. So I think it's been really good to see kind of that area of volleyball being talked about from, like, a first person experience, not so much from us outsiders who love to have
Mhm.
opinions. So I think that's something that I've felt kind of been missing, and I certainly am seeing that kind of come in a lot. I still think that there's an opening to have, like, a very journalistic approach to NCAA volleyball.
Yeah.
I think, we again, like, we love to share our opinions, but, I hear the content that my husband listens to for football, and it is very analytical and it's very straightforward. It's very journalistic, sports journalism. And I think that we could use more of that, just more of like
Mhm.
the analysis and all of that stuff, not so much of like, what I mean, I do it too, right? It's certainly not no shade to anybody, but just like, oh my gosh, and then she hit it like this, and that was so crazy. And then did you see that? And that was crazy,
Yeah.
more of like that analysis part of it. But I think I just love to see former athletes and current coaches continue to talk about what they wish they knew. Whenever you're an athlete, I think there's a lot of voices that you can listen to and a lot of perspectives, and you're having all of these things tell you all ton of different things at the same time, from your parents, from your coaches, from social media. And I think it's just really important to have solid, experienced adults who are mentoring you and speaking into you. And so certainly you want that in person, but I think even just getting that online of hearing that from somebody saying like it's going to be okay, or it's not the
Mhm.
end of the world, or here's how to navigate the recruiting process, and just all of, somebody who's well intentioned and has some emotional maturity beyond where the athletes are at. I think it provides a lot of um, value to their experience. And just, who knows who's going to stumble upon that video? Who knows who's going to watch that, or what parent's going to share that with their kid and how that's going to impact their life. And I think that's just what I keep reminding myself of like, I don't know the impact I'm making. Maybe nothing, maybe it's going out into the void, but at least I know like maybe one person is going to
Mhm.
be encouraged or reminded of why they play, or understand how hard they need to work, or whatever it is. Or I've been doing a lot of content for coaches recently, and I think that we're just really under equipped a lot of times of like coaching philosophy and cornerstones of what we're doing and all of those things. And so like, oh, maybe I can just impact that one coach who's going to then impact their 10 to 12 players. And I think they just have to keep that in mind of, who knows what's happening out there, just doing what I can.
That's why, you and I both started this is like just to help others and get
Mhm.
our thoughts out there, get feedback from other coaches too. Like we can share our situation and like what our perspective is. And I love when coaches or players or even parents kind of come back and say, hey, well, what about this? Or like you're
Yeah.
saying in the DMs, like getting advice for X, Y, and Z situations. And the beauty of it is we all can have different perspectives on it. And then it's like, okay, what do you want to take from those perspectives that work the best for you? And so I think that's just also sometimes what people on social media need to remember is the grace of our opinions and thoughts, because we are putting them out there vulnerably and it might not match
Mhm.
up to everybody, but that's
Mhm.
okay. And I think that's a wonderful thing because people are super passionate, especially in the volleyball world, which I love,
Yes.
but
Yes.
give us some compassion for what we're sharing.
Yes.
So, one last question for you. If you could go back and give your freshman year of college self one piece of
Mhm.
advice, what would you go back and tell yourself?
Oh, man. I think the biggest thing that I would tell her is that it's going to be hard and you're going to be better for it. I think I would never want to have to navigate some of the things I did, and with injuries and the mental block and all of that stuff. Wasn't fun. It was really hard. But I also know it has served me so well in my life, and it has completely changed the trajectory of where I'm at now. Like, I'm currently getting my master's in sports psych, and so it's like I never would I have ever done that if I hadn't experienced that. And ironically, this could certainly change, but something that I'm really passionate about is like the psychology of injury and recovery.
Mhm.
And so just seeing those things line up and continue to change my path and change my trajectory in life. And then like it just has equipped me to be resilient as a person and manage the life things that are hard. I'm even, looking at a pretty major surgery this year and knowing like I've done it. I've done hard things. I can do this. Like it just
Yeah.
continues to pay off dividends, even though it's hard. And that's what I tell my athletes a lot too, is like, we don't just play volleyball to have fun and to win games. That's certainly part of it, and it needs to be part of it. But part of what we're learning here is how to set yourself up for success throughout your entire life. And these lessons are so valuable. And if you lean into them, then they will only continue to serve you really, really well into adulthood and beyond. So, like the conflict resolution thing, like if they can learn how to do that well on their team, and they can
Mhm.
take that into their workplaces, like how much more successful are they going to be? How better are their relationships going to be? And so I think, yeah, I would just probably tell myself that like it's gonna be hard. There are gonna be really challenging things, but it's going to change your life and you're going to be better for those things.
I fully agree. Thank you for sharing all of that. The strongest people have to go through the hardest times, and there's always a larger picture that you'll look back on and use those tools for something else in the future. Thank you so much. Where can people find you, follow along, and connect with you?
Yeah, so the main place is going to be my TikTok, at Let's Talk Volleyball. So it's funny because not my face isn't always on all of my posts. Like I do a lot of like pictures too, and so I think it's funny because people probably have seen my content and they just don't know they've seen my content. So
Yeah.
so yep, that's where you can find it. I do have a YouTube account. We're currently working on posting some stuff there, and then just yesterday created a Patreon. It's gonna be totally free, but just have some more extended long form stuff that I'm working on there, and
That's
then
awesome.
able to kind of put all my resources there as well, because that's something that I've been working on cultivating, is like the drills database and how to plan practices and all that stuff for coaches. So just trying to put it on one like central locations. But that's always going to be on my TikTok. Like that is going to be my home base. So that's where I would head.
Awesome. I'm so excited for all that you share and everything that 2026 will have in store for you. And I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing all of your content. I love it. So everybody needs to go
Thank
check
you.
out her page. Well, Elise, thank you so much for being here. This was such an incredible conversation. And I know everybody listening is going to get something out of it. You're amazing. Please keep doing what you're doing. And I'm so looking forward to your future. And thank you again for joining She Ace That.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had such a great time just chatting. And again, let's talk volleyball. I love talking about volleyball.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody else, for listening in. And we will see you all next Wednesday.